What is up, guys? Delboy here. So, some rather unfortunate news. David Lemieux's fight tomorrow night with Tureano Johnson has been called off due to David Lemieux being hospitalised due to dehydration. Now, obviously, he was struggling to make the weight. So yeah, overall, I'm gutted that this fight isn't happening because I felt it had the potential to be fireworks. You know, two aggressive fighters, two guys who can punch, two guys who have been in exciting fights in the past. You know, it could only really gel to be a firefight. So I am disappointed that the fight is not happening. Obviously, I wish David Lemieux a quick and speedy recovery, and hopefully we see him fight again in the new year. But going forwards, it does raise some interesting questions about David Lemieux's career. Can David Lemieux make middleweight healthily anymore? And, you know, when you look back at David Lemieux's career, this isn't the first time when he's had issues with weight. He was supposed to fight James De La Rosa back in 2016, and he actually missed weight for that fight, and the fight fell through at the last minute because De La Rosa didn't want to fight Lemieux when he was overweight. And also, David Lemieux missed weight in a recent fight against Karim Atshaw. That fight did go ahead though. And, you know, if you've looked at David Lemieux in the past at weigh-ins, even when he's made weight, he always looks pretty bad, to be quite honest. You know, it does look like it takes him a lot to make middleweight. And, you know, going forward, it is going to be interesting to see what they do with him, because obviously the next division is super middleweight, and, you know, that is quite a big jump from middleweight. You know, there's some big guys at that weight. Callum Smith, you know, 6'3", David Benavidez, Gilberto Ramírez. These are big guys with scope of moving up to light heavyweight. They're big guys. So how does Lemieux compete with the likes of Callum Smith and Gilberto Ramírez? I believe he will struggle mightily with those type of guys. You know, if Lemieux is to move up to super middleweight, his promoters will need to match him very carefully and get him the right fights. I do believe there are fights for him, big money fights. So for example, if Canelo beats Rocky Fielding, which he should do, that could be a fight for David Lemieux at super middleweight. You know, Lemieux and Canelo are both with Golden Boy. There has been talk about these two guys fighting each other for quite some time. Maybe it could happen at 168. Who knows? Another route for David Lemieux, in my opinion, would be to target the winner of James DeGale versus Chris Eubank Jr. That is a big money fight, of course, and maybe from a competitive point of view, maybe a more winnable fight for David Lemieux at 168. Now, don't get me wrong, let's say Eubank Jr. beats James DeGale and he does fight David Lemieux. I would still pick Eubank Jr. to beat Lemieux, but at least Eubank Jr. is a smaller super middleweight. He is basically a middleweight. I've seen Eubank Jr. in person, and he's a really slender guy. I believe he can still make middleweight. So maybe a Eubank Jr. type of fighter at 168 would be a good fight for David Lemieux. And even James DeGale, if he was to beat Eubank Jr., which I don't think he will do, but I believe James DeGale isn't a terrible style matchup for David Lemieux. We have seen James DeGale struggle with pressure fighters in the past, and, you know, Lemieux is a better fighter than the likes of Porky Medina, who gave James DeGale hell. So, you know, maybe a Canelo fight at 168, maybe the winner of Eubank Jr. versus James DeGale is the route Lemieux needs to go down. But failing that, I really do struggle to see where David Lemieux goes at 168. And like I said, even in these fights I've mentioned for Lemieux, I would still pick him to lose to Canelo, obviously, and I would pick him to lose to Chris Eubank Jr. So I believe, you know, if Lemieux does go to 168, I don't think it will end well for him, to be quite honest. So if Lemieux can still make middleweight, let's say he changes his dietitian, maybe he changes his training regime, and he can still make the weight relatively healthily, he should definitely stay at middleweight. But when you have this type of scare, it might not be the brightest idea, and Lemieux has missed weight in the past. You know, it's not like this is a one-off. So he and his team need to sit down and really decide where David Lemieux goes from here. Because if he cannot make the weight healthily anymore, and he still continues to try and make the weight, you know, weight cuts do add up. They are stressful on the body, and you may have one too many weight cuts, and even if you make the weight, it can still leave you depleted on fight night, and, you know, at that point, you are more at risk to get a bad injury. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where David Lemieux goes from here. I've always been a fan of David Lemieux. You know, I know he's not a great boxer by any means, but he's entertaining. He's a puncher, he's a brawler, he likes a war. He's fought good competition, you know, he doesn't really duck anybody. I've always liked David Lemieux, so I wish he recovers well, and I wish to see him in more fights in the future. But obviously his health comes first, so hopefully he's all A-OK. Share your thoughts below. Peace.